In November 1996, Computer Gaming World declared 1994's Pizza Tycoon to be the 34th worst game of all time. Is it? No. There you go, and people say YouTube intros are just 30 seconds of wasting your time before introducing a sponsor that is utterly inappropriate to both the creator and video topic. Hey, if I can edit my unnecessarily loquacious narrative style down, I might even be able to put this on TikTok where all the cool kids live. But first, let me tell you about today's sponsor. Henderson's British Person Repellent. Right, fine. I suppose you're going to want me to justify why Pizza Tycoon is not, in fact, the 34th worst game of all time. And add a stupid live action segment where I try to wear a supermarket pizza as a hat. With garlic bread. See, the funny thing with worst games of all time is sometimes they're not even that bad. Often they're just mediocre and famous. I can say this as someone who's played CDI Wand of Gamelon on original hardware, which... Look, if you struggled your way through enough PC platformers from the 12MHz 286 era, you'd think it was merely average. At the very least, there are things it's better than, which tends to disqualify an artifact from the category of worst. Besides which, CTW had some kind of problem with Pizza Tycoon, because elsewhere it had some good reviews, especially on the Amiga. And if you didn't think I'd poked enough holes in the fragile fabric of reality for one video, Pizza Tycoon wasn't even Pizza Tycoon. It was in fact a German game called Pizza Connection, and this explains a lot, because believe me, the humour in this game is very, very German. Perhaps one of the reasons it had a mixed reception elsewhere. The Pizza Tycoon naming comes from Microprose, who published the title in the UK and North America. They decided to link it with their other Tycoon games, Railroad Tycoon and Transport Tycoon, the box art being very similar to Transport Tycoon, both front and rear. So why did this game go down like a ham and pineapple topping combination? Loved in Germany, but controversial and divisive anywhere else. Firstly, let's deal with the elephant in the room, or perhaps the galleon in the room. Yes, Piracy. This game had one of the greatest and most subtle anti-piracy measures ever implemented. If you decided to wares this back in the day, you probably ended up with a perfectly working copy. No need to mess around typing in words from the manual, squint at black on brown printing, or twiddle a slowly disintegrating copy protection wheel. And so you wouldn't have a copy of said manual, except maybe some recipe excerpts in a text file. A manual which told you, very subtly, that a good restaurant would always offer some of the classic pizzas on its menu, and included, as a supplement, recipes for said pizzas, which you need to recreate, not just using the same ingredients, but exactly as the picture shows. A picture which you didn't have if all you got was a text file. The game does tell you this if you really screw up making a pizza, but it's easy to miss. And if you don't include at least 3 of those pizzas from the manual, customer numbers in your restaurants will decline to 0. And while it's maybe brilliant as a measure which makes pirates think they've cracked the game when they haven't, I suspect more than a few legitimate customers missed this requirement. Which is a shame, because the pizza creator is genuinely one of the most fun things I've seen in a game from this era. You do really feel like you're inventing pizzas, and this early version has a leniency that later games in the series lack as the management and customer demand models became more sophisticated. Naturally, every time I play one of these games, I have to create a pizza called the Fry-Up. It's surprisingly popular, I have you know. I mean, okay, I think one person bought one. Once. However, if you're trying to create a menu to win the game rather than crack some stupid jokes, the game is genuinely quite hard, and a lot of the information to help you figure out where to start or what pizzas to create is buried in submenus. Even as someone who'd played it at the time, it took me a number of tries to establish a successful restaurant in anything other than the quick start mode. But once I did, I started to have fun trying to keep my empire alive long enough to expand it. There's a lot of early 90s busy work, like the need to keep buying stock for your restaurant, but as your business becomes more successful, you can enter into delivery contracts and hire managers to look after the daily grind for you. One of the reasons I like these games is there's so much of this detail, but the barrier to entry for understanding it is only that you've gone to a restaurant and eaten a pizza while there. It was the 90s, so that restaurant was probably a Pizza Hut, and you did yourself a mischief with the ice cream factory, but even so, you would have figured out fairly quickly that a restaurant needed tables, chairs, and someone to cook the pizzas. Sadly, the game does not offer an ice cream factory station, which is a shame, because wasn't that brilliant? You could fill a bowl with unlimited ice cream and Smarties, then when you got home, your parents would tell you off for being hyperactive while they were trying to watch Noel's house party. While the game doesn't let you give children access to enough jelly tots to make them feel physically sick, you do get to engage in underhand activity and sabotage your competitors' restaurants. And this is the 90s, so it's a bit more involved than leaving bad reviews on their TripAdvisor page. Instead, you could slip laxatives in their ingredients, pong out their restaurant with stinky cheese, and release rats into their dining room. Come on, what did rats ever do to you? But let's get back to the thrust of that argument. Why did Computer Gaming World dislike this game so much? Well, they could simply have been wrong. The Pizza Connection series eventually outlived the magazine, while follow-ups Pizza Syndicate and Pizza Connection 2, also titled Fast Food Tycoon 1 and 2, were released long before CGW folded in 2006. They were followed by a modern 3D game, Pizza Connection 3, in 2018. It's not that bad, honest. But sometimes games rub people up the wrong way, and I think that's easy to happen here, whether you call it Tycoon or Connection. If running pizza restaurants doesn't feel like a fun premise for a game, then most of the detail and simulation is going to fall flat. And if the oddball humour doesn't grab you, then it's just going to irritate and grate, especially if you're not enjoying the game. Grate? Is that a subtle cheese pun there? Maybe the restaurant side could have done with a bit more depth. Going to Pizza Hut in the 90s wasn't just about the pizzas after all. It was about how far you could stretch a small salad bowl by the careful application of structural lettuce leaves. And most of all, if you missed that subtle hint in the manual or readme telling you that you need to put a margarita on your menu, then this is going to seem like an incredibly frustrating and obtuse game and needs better feedback on why your restaurant empire isn't working. But also, maybe it committed the sin of not being quite up there with the best strategy games of the mid-90s. Perhaps those graphics looked a little too cheesy and stale, in a world where everything was going 640 by 480 SVGA. And that's the thing, worst games of all time often aren't actually the worst, but they are recognisably less good to a large number of people. That's the problem the CDI Zelda games have. There are many games objectively far worse in gameplay terms, and a fair few CD-ROM titles with worse FMV animation. But none of those pretended to be part of a series known for its impeccable standard of gameplay, and most of them ended up on bargain software spinners where they were seen by a sum total of 12 people. Maybe that's the problem. Microprose stuck the Tycoon branding on this box in an era where the reference standard was set by Sid Meier and Chris Sawyer, and the goofy pizza theme brought it to a lot of people's attention. If you're picking it up now, you're doing so in an era where the word Tycoon is second only to simulator as an indicator of hastily assembled shovelware, and your expectations are going to be suitably lowered. In which case, it's a fun game about pizza. If you catch the Pizza Connection bundle on sale, when you can get this, Fast Food Tycoon 2, and the modern Pizza Connection 3, all for about £4, then I'd say that passes the sandwich test. It's better than anything you'd buy at a pizzeria for that amount of money, unless you've somehow time travelled back to the 1990s, and you're in a Pizza Hut with the ice cream factory. It's not the best game in the world, but it's certainly not the 34th worst of anything. except maybe 34th worst day of healthy eating for me, after I had to consume everything I used for those stupid live action segments.